Most of the time, I'm recommending we just use ChatGPT because I find that 90% of the specialty apps out there are just essentially it's lipstick on top of ChatGPT.
Right.
Not to say they're not adding value, but they're things that you probably don't need them for. Now, what gets me excited is some of the new agentic AI or the agents that are coming out, because that's going to be, in my mind, another level of value that they can bring. And for users that are going, what do you mean agents? I mean, with prompts nowadays, we pretty much have to tell it, here's what steps we want you to take, and it will then do that. No, I think the agents are going to be huge just because it's going to allow us to give it an objective and have it go out and create that. I think that's going to be massive for us. I also think we're going to continue to see improvements in the video area and the voice areas, as you mentioned. Video is one of the things that everybody's very enamored with, for example. I mean, yet, we are not anywhere near the point that you can say, give me a 30-minute sitcom or, for that matter, a 3-minute commercial based on a prompt.
Hello, and welcome to the How2Exit Podcast, where we introduce you to a world of small to medium business acquisitions and mergers. We interview business owners, industry leaders, authors, mentors, and other influencers with the sole intent to share with you what it looks like to buy or sell a business. Let's get rolling. And now a moment for our sponsors. This episode of How to Exit is brought to you by Final Ascent, the boutique M&A firm helping lower middle market business owners achieve their ultimate exit. At Final Ascent, they know selling your business is one of the biggest decisions you'll ever make, and they've been in your shoes. Their team isn't just made of advisors. They're experienced business owners who have successfully navigated their own exits. Final Ascent specializes in preparing businesses for sale, building value, and connecting with a national network of qualified buyers who will compete for your business. They don't take on a client unless they're confident they can sell your business at the current market maximum value. Whether you're ready to sell now or planning for the future, they'll craft a roadmap tailored to your unique goals so that you can walk away with maximum value and a peace of mind. Start your journey today at Final Ascent. That's www.finalascent.com, because your next chapter starts with a successful exit. I want to highly recommend you get Acquisition Aficionado magazine. Every month, Acquisition Aficionado magazine brings you tactics for business buying and selling you won't find anywhere else. Learn firsthand from industry leaders who share their success stories, featuring in-depth interviews and stories from leading figures in the business acquisition industry. This multi-platform mobile magazine speaks to acquisition entrepreneurs wherever they are in the journey. And I want you to visit acquisitionaficionado.com today. Hello, and welcome to the How to Exit Podcast. Today I'm here with Jonathan Mast. He is the founder of Whitebeard Strategies, and we're going to do something different today. We usually talk about buying companies, selling companies, what it looks like to prep your company for sale and all that. But today we're going to spend some time on what it looks like once you've acquired a company. Jonathan is an expert in marketing. He's an expert in AI technologies and helping grow companies using these two new, the old school and the new school, I guess you would call it. So thank you for being here today, Jonathan, and let's get this thing going, man.
Well, I'm excited to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Well, okay, so let's start off where we always start off, is kind of who are you, where are you from, and what got you into the space, so people can kind of get to know who we're chatting with today.
Love to. So, I've spent most of my career in the digital marketing field. Been in sales and marketing, but most of the last 20 years was all in digital marketing. And when AI came out in 2022 in a wrapper that made it easy to do. I mean, AI has been around for a while, but when that wrapper came out, this ADD visionary entrepreneur was like, "Holy crap! I could do some really cool stuff with this." And candidly, what I found is that being ADD, I can hyper focus for a period of time. And AI gave me that ability to hyper focus longer because it kept up with my brain better. And it sounds really weird. If you're not ADD, you probably don't get it. But if you are ADD, you go, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense." And I'm like, I started seeing, like everything else, I started seeing people coming out on really two sides. It was the fear mongers on one side talking about, oh my gosh, AI is going to take all our jobs. We're all going to have nothing to do. We're going to be worthless, blah, 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 blah. I'm not there. And the other was, 18-year-old kids that were standing next to Learjets they didn't know and telling them how they made millions of dollars with AI and it had just come out. And I'm like, we need a voice of reason in here. And for whatever reason, I guess because I'm 55 and have a long white beard, I'm like, I self-appointed myself that voice of reason and started just talking to people about AI, adding value. And I guess it's working because we talked about 500,000 people now every day about AI and prompting and how to leverage it in business. And at the same time, how to have some fun with it at the same time.
Awesome. Well, I know I use it every day in everything we do. Every tool that we have for this podcast and everything we're using for other areas of businesses I run, we bring it in everywhere we can. And it has both streamlined what we do and produced a higher level of quality in what we do in much less time. So did it replace anybody? Yeah, I probably would probably have to have one, maybe two more VAs without it, just because of the time. Especially when I was doing 2 shows a week. We're down to 1 show a week now. But when we were doing 2 shows a week and we were scheduling all that, and I had 3 or 4 clients on, we had 2 full-time VAs and we still used AI. But AI has become more proficient and we're doing a little bit less on the production side now. So we're down a little bit smaller of a staff for this thing. But where do you see AI? Where do you in the last? I think you said 2022. It's been only 2-3 years since it's been kind of open in the public.
Yeah.
I mean, I did my master's degree in marketing I graduated in 2007, so I waited a little while after undergrad to go to. I'm 52. No, I'm sorry, I just turned 53. But yeah, so. Even back then, I remember talking about, or the IBM had a Watson, I think was it called. IBM Watson was this AI, and it was helping paralegals and doctors and scientists and stuff at this point. So it had been around, and that was in 2007. And I know that the giant, biggest AI in the world has been around as long as that, and that's the one that BlackRock uses. I forgot what it's called now, but they have an AI tool that helps them do market predictions. It's a monster. But that one's been around. But you're right. The public wrapper, the ChatGPT came out and said, "Here's something the everyday person could use," and kind of expose that to your average person.
Yeah, and I think that's opened up opportunities that we just hadn't really anticipated prior to that. I always tell people, they're like, I'm scared of AI. I'm like, do you use GPS in your car? And they're like, well, yeah, of course. I'm like, you realize that's a version of AI. You ever use a spell checker on your computer? You ever use Grammarly? It checks your grammar. Oh, yeah, I've been using that for years. That's a version of AI. I think just, in 2022, when ChatGPT came out with that wrapper, and now, of course, we've got all kinds of things, all of a sudden it made it much more understandable and available to those of us like me that I'm not a coder, I'm not a developer, I'm a sales and marketing guy. And so being able to pull that in has been just massively important.
Yeah, I seen last week or the week before, I think it was a CEO of Anthropic, which is one of the AI companies out there. He came out and said right now, AI can do about 70% of all code. And within 12 months, it'll be nearly 100%, right? What do you feel? There is some realistic concerns for people to think that AI is going to change people's jobs. Will it take jobs? It will, but there'll be things that AI can't do that people will need to shift into. It's just the same way, there were a lot more horse stables before cars came around, right?
Well, exactly, yes.
So.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and I'm not one to say that nobody's going to be displaced by AI. They will be. It's interesting when we go back and study history. When the printing press came out, everybody predicted that we're not going to need to work anymore because the printing press is going to make you knowledge ubiquitous. When the internal combustion engine came out, that happened. When the PC got put on desktops, which I can remember, that's when I was getting in the workforce, they predicted that. When the internet came out, they predicted it. They've always been wrong, and they're wrong this time when they're predicting it. Will there be displaced people? Yeah. I grew up in an Amish community where there was literally somebody that made buggy whips and buggy wheels and that. But there aren't many of those around anymore because the internal combustion engine replaced that. The good news is every one of those technological shifts has created more opportunity on the back end than it took away on the front end. So will there be people displaced? Yes, there will. Like you mentioned, you probably need 2 less assistants now because you've got AI to help you out with things. But those assistants, though the AI that you have is allowing more opportunities to be created, and ultimately we're going to have more jobs than what we did prior to AI.
And there's still a lot of work for AI to do, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
I'm probably more technical than most. I wouldn't say I'm, at the top of the line. I haven't written a line of code probably in 25, 30 years. Since I was forced to in college, at least. Maybe,
I
besides
love it.
maybe some scripting language and stuff. In the last couple of weeks, I decided I'd get a wild hair and wanted to put out an app. And usually, if I wanted to do something like that, I'd go hire a couple people and I'd give them the idea, we'd flesh out the requirements, and I'd have them code it. But I thought I would jump in and play with the AI programming tools that are out there, Replit and Lovable and all the other ones. And they're not as no code as they like to say they are.
Yeah, exactly. It's AI still amplifies skill and experience. If
Yeah.
I'm not a heart surgeon and I could attempt and play one with AI, but if you let me cut open your chest, you'd still be an idiot because I don't have that skill and experience. And so can I think, help programmers? Absolutely. Can it help them do maybe even better code? Possibly. But it's not going to replace a good developer because now the expectation of that developer is that they're going to have the AI tools. And so we're going to be able to get more work done. It's simply going to change that paradigm.
Yeah, I can see AI being really good at producing code. I think the difficult part of code is translating human desires and needs into something that relates to on software. So,
Yes,
it,
100%.
I worked for the government for a while in the computer industry where we designed computer and software tools and stuff for mostly the military and the government. And the requirements phase was the toughest one. Like, what do they really want? What do they really need?
Yep.
And how do we put that into software? Because they seldom need one thing. You put it in the software, and like, that's not exactly what we were looking for, right? So that's the
Exactly.
most difficult part inside of coding. Isn't writing the software. It's figuring out what the end user truly wants and delivering it to them in a way that's actually useful. And
Yes.
I'm sure AI will get good to the point where it'll start knowing that and start asking you better questions, right?
But yeah, I mean, we're going to continue to see improvements, like you said, but that's where I don't agree with the fear mongers. It's not. It's like businesses that assume that, oh man, if I can use AI, can I replace my sales team? It's probably one of the biggest questions I get from business owners, and I'm like, not if you want to keep selling stuff. No, that's not going to be wise. Can it augment your sales team? Absolutely. But AI is never going to build the relationships in that. At 2 in the morning, when somebody wants to buy a service or something you have available on your website or book an appointment, can AI help them do that? 100%. But if I'm looking at purchasing something, unless I'm only interested in price, I'm not going to be interested in buying that from an AI agent. I'm still going to be looking for information and that relationship and that trust before I buy.
I've seen some of the newer tools out there. I've messed with some of them that are working with empathetic type of tones and stuff like that. I can get to the point where I believe there'll be a day where it's going to be hard to tell if you're talking to a human being or an AI, right?
Absolutely agreed. Yes.
So, especially in voice or where you're not in person. I mean, if you're in person, you're in person. But when you're on, if it's a phone call or if it's maybe even a Zoom call with some of the cool video stuff they're doing, I think it might get fairly difficult to figure out if somebody's real or if they're just an avatar with a AI on the back end of it.
I mean, I literally ran into it yesterday. So I'm looking to purchase something, and I'd scheduled an appointment to go in and talk to a salesperson about it. And I got a text, and the text wasn't badly written, but it just seemed a little off. And it was apparent they hadn't read what I had sent them when I booked the appointment. They were kind of confused. And I just immediately thought, I bet this is a bot that's poorly programmed. And I actually asked, I said, is this a bot or a human? Now, I was surprised in this case I got back a human. And then I will admit, my brain did a bit of a switch. I thought, I almost wish it was a bot because it probably would have read what I said and not caused the inconsistencies. And I
Yeah.
do think that's something that's going to change. I do think that in many ways, as we progress through this, we as consumers are going to get to the point that we're like, for some of our interactions, again, like booking an appointment, I really don't need to talk to a human being. I just want to be able to talk, can get it done with and marked off my calendar so that I can move on with my life. So I think there will be areas like that. But I also, again, like I said, I don't think it's going to replace salespeople wholesale either.
I've actually been you get a kick out of this. I've been experimenting with making ChatGPT, the voice activated version, a co-host for some of the shows. Like where but I
Oh,
haven't
that
got the
would be
software to
cool.
work right where it's recorded. I haven't figured out the software loop to get it to hear what you're saying with one of these tools and to hear what I'm saying through the mic and to know there's two different people talking. So we've been playing with it, but at some point I think that'd be a fun show just to have pre-train an AI, whether it's ChatGPT or one of the others, to listen to a conversation and have it either suggest in the background to me or just have it come right out and ask questions to deepen the conversation, to understand our audience and to do that, just like having a virtual co-host. And
Yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
know anybody doing it yet, but I've been trying to get I don't know what software I'm missing or whatever. I'm on a Mac and maybe it's just too locked down, but it can't hear.
I love the idea, though.
Yeah. But let's start off with what are some of the ways you're helping small businesses use AI to grow?
One of the biggest things that we're focusing on is just encouraging them not to overcomplicate it. And one of the things we see so often is many business owners look at AI as it must be the easy button. I can do this and it's going to make everything easy. It's really more of an easier button instead of an easy button. In other words, it's going to help and do things and it can help do things faster, but it's not always going to alleviate it. Give an example. This morning, I went into we sell courses, and so last night in the morning I typically took a look. How did we do yesterday? And I saw that we have one individual that had tried to buy our course 50 separate times last night, and every transaction had failed. So I popped in my Stripe account and took a quick look, and I could have had my assistant do it, but I had a moment and I took a look, and I realized that he also tried 50 different credit card numbers because the last four digits on every card number was different. Okay, immediately that's fraud. We know that's fraud. Now they all got declined. That's the good news, but Stripe wasn't doing anything about it. So I thought, you know what? I really need to write an email to Stripe just to cover my behind to make sure that I've notified them of this activity. And, not a problem. I can normally do that, but that would have taken me 15 minutes to think about how to do it, what to say, put everything together. Instead, I grabbed a screenshot from my Stripe dashboard. I went to ChatGPT and I explained, just like I'm talking to you, what I wanted done. And literally in 30 seconds, I had an incredible email with tons of detail from the screenshot that basically said, we're putting you on notice that there's been fraudulent activity. We see this. We encourage you to block this user or do whatever you do. That would have, again, taken me 15 minutes at least to do. Now it took me 5. And there's so many things like that I think come up for us as business owners. And some of them, the problem is we're not doing them because it's going to take too long and we've got too many other things. And AI now frees us up to do some of that. So in my case, as fast as I could have had my assistant say, go in, check this out, figure out what's going on, send an email to Stripe, it was all done and I had already approved it. And so that's just one of many examples that we use. And I think that's a big example of just start simple. Don't try to do everything day one. Start with something simple and then add a new task every day. It won't take long and your brain will start going, oh, hey, if it did this, I could do this. And then you're going to realize that it's become an important tool in your toolbox that you're using every single day.
Right. The one of the cool things that we do, and I help people in the community do and use it, is to answer some, or help us take a look at things that are fairly complex, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times the guys that we talk to, the guys that listen to the show, and the guys that hang out with me on Zooms. So we have a Zoom that we meet twice a month for the listeners, people trying to buy and sell companies, and one of the things that we have to do in a lot of these companies is industry research or due diligence on a particular company. And
Mm-hmm.
we've been using AI a lot now, especially with some of the deeper research AI tools to do that. But getting the prompt right is often a problem. So I come up with a little formula I want to share with you, get your feedback on it. Maybe you can help me improve it. Here's how I get people to prompt it. I said, treat AI as if it's one of a new hire, a new employee. So in every prompt that I do AI, or that I haven't pre-canned, I have a lot of them I copy and paste because I've used them over and over again. But when I'm coming up with a new one, I act like it's a new employee. I tell them why I hired them. So the first thing, statement is, you are this type of person, and I need you to help with this type of task, right? You're
Exactly.
a copywriter. You're a world-class copywriter, and I need you to, help me write a sales letter for XYZ business. And then I tell them the second step is like, who you are, who are you, what I hire you for, and then I tell them, here's exactly what I need. I kind of give them a description of the output I'd like to see. So, let's just follow down the marketing nerd thing and go down the copyright. They say, I want you to use the ADA format, which is attention and, anyway, I'm not going to get into that. But it's an
Yeah,
ADA,
nope.
huh?
It knows it.
It knows it. So the ADA format, and, and I want it to be, 1 to 2 pages long. I'll give it the description of anything that I think it needs. And then the last thing I always do is the same thing I do with the new employee. Ask me any questions you have of me, or do you have any questions before you get started that'll help you complete this task?
I think you've got it nailed. It's a really, we follow something almost identical, and we call it the perfect prompt framework.
Yeah.
The part that I love that you added in that so few people do is that last part. So it's just like you said, with an employee, we're going to ask that employee, if you have any questions, ask. We don't ever seem to say that to AI, and yet AI is intelligent enough, quote unquote, I use that word in air quotes, to know, boy, you just asked me to write a press release and you didn't tell me who the audience was. I should really ask you who that is. And if we don't ask, it's going to assume, and we know what happens when we assume. We end up like the south end of a northbound mule. And so if you add that, I love that. You wouldn't believe how few people do that. I think that's amazing.
It'll come back often with 10 to 15 questions. And I even follow up with, I absolutely treat it as an employee. So if I did that with an employee, I said, you have any questions before you get started? They ask me 5 or 10 questions. Like, okay, nah. Then I say, at the end of that conversation, I'll say, do you understand the task at hand, or do you still have questions? I do the same thing before I ask the prompt to generate the quality product. At the end of all, I'll answer it. Say it'll come back with 10 or 15 questions. Who's the target customer? What's the business? What's the product life cycle? How long are they going to use it? It'll ask you all kinds of cool stuff about what you need to know as a copywriter to write that sales copy. When it's done, I'll say, do you have everything you need, or do you have any further questions? Sometimes it'll pop up and say, well, this and this and this would help. And then I would answer that. I don't let it go too far, because it'll ask you questions all day long if you keep asking.
It can, yeah. Sometimes you got to go, never mind, just get started. Yeah.
Just show me what you got, right? The same thing you would as employees. Like, sometimes employees get into analysis paralysis, and at some point, like, okay, I think you've got everything you really need. Go do what you do, bring it to me, and we'll see if there's room for improvement, right? And a lot of times you do that with AI. You'll tell it, okay, I think you have everything you need. Go do what you do, bring it back to me, and then you'll read the letter and you go, I think it needs a stronger close, or a stronger call to action, or whatever. Now, the difference between me and you and most of the population out there is we know what a good sales letter looks like, probably. It's because of our marketing background.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there is something to be said about having a good BS meter for anything you ask AI to do. The same way you would have a good BS meter to ask anything you would ask an employee to do. Right.
Well, and I think what you're hitting in there is so important, and that's, AI amplifies skill and experience. You and I know what a good sales letter looks like, which means that you and I using AI are going to write a better sales letter than Joe Schmo down on the corner business. He can write a sales letter, but it's never going to be as good. It's like me trying to be a chiropractor without being a chiropractor. AI can teach me some things, but it's never going to be as powerful as if a trained chiropractor used it. It'd be far more powerful for them to use it.
It's one of those things that it's a skill modifier or enhancer.
Yes.
I often use in the copyright world, I often use the tier levels. Like, there are people out there that if you paid them to write a sales letter, they're only worth the $10,000 sales letter. I've been trained by Dan Kennedy. I've taken copyright courses by him and other people. I've been trained. I have all these different things where I've been trained in it. Right. I probably spent $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 being trained on writing better copy.
Sure.
Because before AI, I had to do it. That's how I built sales letters. Is how I built most of my businesses. That said, there are people out there that you couldn't get a letter out of them. You couldn't get them to write a copy or a sales letter for you for less than 50. And you got people out there that won't even come look at you or talk to you about writing your sales letter for less than 100, like Dan Kennedy. You
Right.
basically have to pay him 100 grand to get him to look at your business to see whether or not he'll write a letter for you. I would
Exactly.
say that, and I would put my class, if I was still doing copywriting, I would probably charge, if you want me to do an in-depth one, do the research, everything, no less than $10,000 is what it would cost. AI replaced that. Even if you're a business owner out there and you've never written a letter in your life, AI can do a $10,000 copy letter off the bat. But if you take a
Hmm.
guy like myself who's had the training and put it in there, I can compete with the guys at the $50,000 to $60,000 levels now. Just
Exactly.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's just because I know what to look for. I know what it sounds like. I know that there's certain things you would never do in standard writing you want to do inside of a good sales letter, right? Example is open loops. You start an idea, you get
Hmm.
intrigued, and then don't give them the answer to the idea, right? Especially if you're trying to
Exactly.
drive to a call or something. That said, what other prompts or other tools do you see inside of this? I mean, we talked about writing sales letter and doing some marketing and stuff. There's some tools coming out that will actually generate full ads and stuff. What are you using? What do you have your customers using these days?
Most of the time, I'm recommending we just use ChatGPT because I find that 90% of the specialty apps out there are just essentially it's lipstick on top of ChatGPT.
Right.
Not to say they're not adding value, but they're things that you probably don't need them for. Now, what gets me excited is some of the new agentic AI or the agents that are coming out because that's going to be, in my mind, another level of value that they can bring. And for users that are going, what do you mean agents? I mean, with prompts nowadays, we pretty much have to tell it, here's what steps we want you to take, and it will then do that. Agentic AI is different in that we can basically give it our end goal and it will then figure out what steps it needs to take in order to achieve the objective, including things like, hey, I'm going to have to go check your email because that's part of what you want me to do, and then turning control back over to us to log into our email or our LinkedIn account or whatever. So that's probably got me more excited than anything else because I think we haven't really even scratched the surface. And so many people don't even understand what we can do with AI. I think they're going to be even more blown away, so to speak, when they start seeing what some of the agentic AI can do.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to a lot more of that stuff. I still haven't found a really great agent tool that is truly autonomous, meaning that I don't have to interact with
Agreed.
it. There are certain
Yeah.
things like I hold monthly events. I would love for an AI to go, be able to tell an agent, log into my things I have my VA do now that's just repetitive, right? Log
Yes,
into my
exactly.
LinkedIn account, create this calendarly thing. We do it on the first Thursday and the third Thursday of every single month at 8 a.m. Pacific. This is the Zoom link. It never changes. All this different stuff is
Hmm.
just cookie cutter. Like it's got a repetitive task. I would love to have an AI that just like, do this, and then I'd also like to be able to go and look at the last 15 meetings and invite everybody that's ever said they were going to attend to those. Because right now that's a task that takes the Mariel, my assistant, probably an hour or two, right?
Exactly.
Each month, or maybe an hour or two for each meeting, so 4 hours, 6 hours a month, where an autonomous tool could really do that fairly easily. If there was one out there that could log into the account without saying, "Hey, stop everything you're doing and log into it while I go do this." So,
100%. And that's, the agent tools are really in their infancy right now at best, and maybe even pre-infancy. But I think that's something we're going to see more and more things. Like you said, when you give it the ability to actually execute on some of those repeatable tasks, they're important. They need to be done, but they obviously are largely administrative and therefore and largely rote. In other words, they're going to operate essentially the same way every time. It would be kind of like I mentioned earlier with I would love to be able to have a agent that checked my sales over the last 24 hours and identified, we've got an individual here that's done a bunch of, charges that didn't go through. Let's find out if it's, oh yeah, look at that, 50 different credit cards. Okay, write the email and notify Stripe. Doesn't happen often, but it would be really nice if I didn't have to worry about that or even look at that. And I think we're getting closer to those days.
it's like we have probably about 150, maybe 200,000 followers between all the different platforms. I'd love to
Yep.
have an AI that can log into every single platform, check on those followers, watch my stream, right? Because it's just too much. and
Yeah.
see who's talking about X, Y, and Z to give me ideas. Like, where are the challenges that my listeners are having, right? Because I'll bring a guy on for that, and I ask them all the time. I always say, if you're stuck somewhere, tell me, who would have the answers. I'll go interview them, and then you'll have content. You'll have a lesson in a box, right? But very rarely, maybe one or two people will respond. But often you'll see people just pop up and ask the masses on social media, which is the world's worst place to ask a question, by the way. You know,
Yes.
ask a bunch of half-nots that surfing Twitter how to do due diligence on a business you're going to buy, and 15 out of 20 or 18 out of 20 of the people that answer your question are not attorneys and have never bought a business, and they're giving you emotional response answers, and
Exactly.
you're just clouding, murking up the water there. You're better off to go to AI as we're talking and just see what AI has to say. There's another one I'm playing with. What do you think about this idea? I'm a visionary in the realm of. There's two different classes of entrepreneurs usually. There's people who are visionary and idea people like me who are extremely ADHD, ADD, and can come up with ideas and solve problems fast. That's one of the things I do. I'm not the operator. So I'm not the implementer guy, the guy who can just jump in there and turn the gear the same. Like, this widget turns over at this speed every day and it produces $1 if you turn it this direction at this speed, right? At the third crank over and the third dollar over, I'll be like, okay, this is boring. What about this cool thing over here? And I'm off doing my other thing.
Yes.
That is detrimental to a business. All great businesses
Every time. Yeah.
all great businesses need somebody in there that says, wait, this makes $1. I'm going to sit here and crank this out, right? They need the operator, the guy that can say, your ideas are wonderful. Go over there and play with your idea. Let me go here and crank this dollar out. Let me be the operator. I've been playing with my AI. I've got one I'm training like a project. So it retains all the stuff, and it's my business partner. He's my operator guy, right? So I ask it's kind of like a business coach in a box. And
Perfect.
it's pretty good. I've caught it hallucinating a couple of times still, even today. But so does the average person I would chat with. I brought,
Exactly.
if I hired Joe Smo, CEO of 5 companies who's retired, and I met him in school, and I said, hey, come on, be my advisor, come and sit on my board. 99% of the stuff out of his mouth is probably gold, but there's still 1% opinionated garbage that comes out of every human being. So
It's a good point you make. It's like people that go, why do I have to proofread the stuff that AI creates for me? And I'm like, well, if I assigned it to a writer on my team, or if I had my admin write a memo for me, which I've done many times in my life, I didn't send it out company-wide or publish the press release without doing it and taking a look at it. They're like, well, of course not. And I said, why would you expect to do that with AI then? It's no different. Like you said, it will make mistakes, but I always remind people this has been trained on every book in every library in the entire world. If you've gone to Barnes and Noble, or if you ever went to a library, for those of us old enough to remember a library with physical books, you go to a topic, there's more than one book on a topic, and they don't all agree. So it's not surprising that since AI has been trained on all that and nobody told it which was the right book, that sometimes it's going to give contradictory information or that it's going to get confused on things. It's part of our role. It's why AI is never going to totally replace us, in my mind.
And I'm going to say something slightly controversial here.
Please. Oh, those are the best.
Yeah, I'm never into politics on this show, but because I always joke around. I'm just asking if you're a Republican or Democrat, and I refuse to say on the show. But I'll just tell you that I think they're both wings. Everybody's talking about right wing, left wing. I think they're both wings of the same bird, and it's a big old corrupt vulture. Both sides are dirty. That's as far as
I told you pre-show we're cut from the same cloth. I tell you, I agree with you entirely.
The right wing, I'm right wing, I'm left wing. Yeah, you're both vultures. That said, I still think that there's all the AI currently is programmed and by teams of engineers, mostly in Silicon Valley and other tech hubs of the world. There is cognitive bias in every human being. So when humans get to select what something's educated on, then our cognitive biases, our own preferential beliefs, usually will come into play. And all the AIs currently have been caught being biased one way or the other. And, there's not... I think along claims he's got Grok trying to be unbiased in any one direction or another, but I just don't think it's possible when you have engineers selecting training data and deselecting, certain areas of content and saying that that's not worthy of being trained on.
I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, it's one of the things I hear so much from the naysayers. They're like, yes, but it's biased. And I'm like, so is every human being on earth.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just part of life. We have to, because somebody's biased doesn't mean that they're necessarily invalid. And the same thing I say about that with AI. It has biases just as every person on earth does. Biases are part of life. The key is to be aware that it has those biases. And when you do that, it's like talking to a person. If you brought up Elon Musk, love him or hate him, he has biases, and one needs to be aware of those. We can go on the other spectrum, and the same thing would again the other wing. It wouldn't matter. Everybody has biases. You have biases. I have biases, and to assume that something's truly non-biased across the board, I don't think is one. First, it's not interesting, and two, it's certainly not very likely.
Right. So I brought the whole topic up because you're talking about proofreading. A lot of times you're going to proofread to make sure it matches the message and the branding and the communication that you want out in the world, right?
Yes.
And you want to make sure it doesn't have any biases in it that don't align with your brand. I'm not. Sometimes it's good marketing to be the rebel, to be the in your face type of person. So, I'm not saying that biases, there's no place for biases in business. There absolutely is. It's you can win quite often by being anti this or pro that, stance. You can make money doing it. That said, just understand the AI is not you or typically one of your employees. You haven't hand selected them and know their background, so you have to proofread it and make sure that its biases or anything it puts together aligns with what you're doing. And I haven't been able to train some of that out of it either. A little bit, but not totally. Where you say, okay, this company's brand image is this, it's that, and we want you to take a harsher stance. A lot of times it comes out too soft on something. You still have to go back. No, be a little more firm on this side of the fence. But the awareness I think is the key in any side of this, right? Being aware of what you want the outcome to look like. You're going to get a lot faster through this tool than anything else.
Yeah, no, and again, I think it's that awareness that really is so important. We simply need to be aware of what we're dealing with. It's no different than when I'm driving. I need to be aware of the traffic around me. Yes, we can assume everybody's going to follow all the laws and that the brakes will work every time somebody applies them in their vehicle, but we can't always assume that. We need to be aware. Even self-driving cars have awareness of the situational surroundings, and we need to do the same thing when we're using AI.
When we say using AI, most of the time at this stage, it's sitting down in front of one of the tools and either speaking into a microphone and talking to it, or typing up a prompt. And we talked about one idea in prop engineering earlier of treating it like it's an employee. There's another area I want to chat with in case you just don't know or you're wanting to try a new tool that seems to be working for me. ChatGPT is very aware of the other AIs out there.
Yes.
So a lot of times if I'm about to use something different that I've never used before, like even when I was going to try to write a piece of software, I told you this before the show, and I think I brought it up in here, I tried to do some no-code, play with the no-code tools. They're just not quite where I thought they would be by this point. That said, I asked ChatGPT, I was like, hey, I'm having trouble with, let's just pick one, Replit. I'm trying to do X, Y, Z in it. And help me create a prompt or a set of prompts to get the end result I want using that tool. And AI is in ChatGPT, Gemini, God forbid, Copilot, any of the others. I'm not a Microsoft fan. I'm running a Mac. I've been on Mac. I was a Unix system engineer when I was in the military and the government. I very rarely use a PC. So if I'm a little biased on anything, it's that PC stands for piece of crap.
I love it.
That said, that's my big cognitive. There's my biases. There are cognitive biases. That said, the prompts in the way that we, put these together is is critical, right? It's like it's the
Yes.
hard part. So a lot of times I just ask it. I was like, well, here's what I want. How would I have asked you? What would be a better prompt so I can save it for the next time? Or hey, I'm about to use tool XYZ. What's the best prompt to accomplish this output? And it's still going back and forth. I don't always just copy and paste what it says, but it's almost always better than what I originally would have tried to halfway put in there to start with.
Exactly. Exactly.
What's your favorite? Are you currently just using ChatGPT, or do you have like Gemini, or what's your favorite current tool?
I use a lot of them depending on what I'm doing because I train on so many of the models. I think I subscribe to virtually everyone that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I probably use ChatGPT for 80 to 90% of what I do. And the main reason I do, believe it or not, is I absolutely love their custom GPT feature. The ability that I can go in and train a version on data that I'm going to use repeatedly. Coming from the digital marketing world, when I'm working with a client, the fact that I can train a model on that client and their specific brand information saves me and my team so much time as opposed to using the others. Now, the other models are great. I love Claude. In fact, they just announced this morning, I don't know if you saw or not, Claude finally is going to have web search. They just announced it this morning,
Ah,
which will be great, be a great addition. That's something that's been missing. Gemini, I've not been a fan of. In fact, I've been pretty outspoken that I think Google has missed the wave on AI, but just in the last couple weeks, they've released their new versions, and I am duly impressed with them. They went it's almost like they decided to sit on the sidelines and tease us for 2 years going, we're going to release a bunch of crap and then we're just going to surprise you one day and release something really good. And by the way, for the record, a couple weeks ago was when the really good came out. So I use a lot of different models. I get people mad at me because I use some of the Chinese models as well because I think it's important to understand the competition. Yeah, I still probably use ChatGPT more than anything else.
I've used DeepSeek twice, three or four times. It was impressive, but for the level I need and what I use, and plus I already started with ChatGPT. I have all my projects in there and stuff. I use it probably 80% of the time too. One of the ones I love to use now I only use it for one use case. And have you messed with Notebook LM?
Yeah, we use it quite a bit actually internally.
I think
I
it's one of the
desperately wish you could share it with more people. I would use it a lot more, but I can only share it with 50 people. So
right.
that's a bit of a bummer. I do a lot of courses, as you know, and I'd love to be able to share a notebook with all of my course members. But yeah, unfortunately, that's not possible.
Yeah, I can see that. I can share them with more. I don't like that I can't change the voices and do a little bit of editing before, like at the end, because I think it would be a cool thing. I'd even spin off a separate podcasting. Its podcast
Isn't that feature
simulation
amazing?
is impressive.
Oh, big time. I like you. I just wish, and I know you can by third party services, but I wish I could like upload my voice and your voice
Yep.
and then go, okay, do the same thing, but with these two voices.
Or even be able to choose like, okay, here's 30 voices. It's kind of like I have a couple tools I do use. I use Descript. Descript has 25, 30 voices.
Love it.
I can use it. I can train it on my own. Right, so it is trained on my voice. So if my team needs to correct a sentence, if I say apple and I said it should have said orange, they don't have to get me to go get on the mic and say the word. Right, it is trained on my voice, so it is slightly different, but it's hard to detect in a conversation. Right, I would
Agreed.
know that it did it because it's me and my voice, but most people would never even picked it up. As a matter of fact, there's actually a show out if you go through our archives where I interviewed AI back at 2 years ago, when and I interviewed and I did it through transcripts and I used Descript to create the voice, but even my voice is simulated. I thought it would
Oh,
be cool
wow.
that it wasn't just me. So I recorded my voice, turned it into transcript, and then I used the deep fake of my voice, and so it's a simulated me interviewing AI about how to buy and sell a company, and it's one of our most viewed shows. I probably should do it again now. It's been 2 years later, and AI is way smarter, right? But the tools that are out there right now are impressive. But where do you see in the next 6 to 8 months or 12 months? I think the game's going to really change as they perfect these agents. I think that's going to be the game changer, right?
No, I think the agents are going to be huge just because it's going to allow us to give it an objective and have it go out and create that. I think that's going to be massive for us. I also think we're going to continue to see improvements in the video area and the voice areas, as you mentioned. Video is one of the things that everybody's very enamored with, for example. I mean, yet, we are not anywhere near the point that you can say, give me a 30-minute sitcom or for that matter, a 3-minute commercial based on a prompt. And a big part of that in my mind, and I'm not saying I'm a perfect video guy, but is the fact if you watch any video, we get new camera angles every 3 to 5 seconds. So you need to be doing storytelling and then you need to do that. And it's not one continuous shot. It's
Right.
multiple shots put together to create that story. And I do think we're going to see a change happening there in probably the next few months, as my gut tells me. I could be wrong, but where I can go in and I can upload a storyline, and based on that storyline, that it would create all the various shots necessary and then compile that into one. We can kind of do that with AI music now. I mean, I can go into AI music generators and I can give it the lyrics I want, and all that, and then I can give it the style I want, and it will create amazing songs that don't all sound the same. So I think that's in video. I think that's one of the big things we're going to see is that ability to say, here's my storyline. And probably almost immediately after that, the ability to almost go in and say, you know what, I need to write a commercial for the following. Here's some sample images. Here's my audience. And press go. And 3 to 5 minutes later, maybe a little longer with video because it takes a lot of processing, we're going to get a commercial that's literally close to being production quality.
Here's what I would like, right, and this is in the agent world. I want an AI that is able to act as a growth agent for online content. And the way that they would need to be able to do that is I want you to be able to log in to my Google Analytics. I want you to be able to log into my YouTube Analytics. I want you to be able to log into all the platforms, my LinkedIn, right? I want you to be able to see the comments on the videos and on the messages, the number of downloads and all that, and then strategically make suggestions
Yes.
for improvements. Right? There's no tool currently that can do that. Like it's a human thing to, I have multiple monitors, and sometimes I have like my Google Analytics up with my, YouTube Analytics with this, and trying to figure out cause and effect, the correlation of
Yes.
how do we get more eyeballs on this type of stuff. That said, I think that's an ideal thing for complex data sets where you're looking at multiple platforms, multiple and even analytics of multiple sets of data, and then give suggestions, right?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
for the common user like you or me that doesn't want to go spend $1 billion to develop an AI to do it, I think it's coming down I don't see one yet, but I think it's coming fairly quickly where you can go, I'm a podcaster. Here's my podcast. Here's my YouTube channel. Here's my Apple. Here's, all the different things. Here's, my usernames and passwords to get into all of them because I don't care if it's as long as it's an AI I trust. Crawl through all of these, make suggestions, look for guests. Here's my 15 competitive industry, people who they're interviewing. Look at their guests. Here, it just crawl through the stuff and either suggest shows, suggest comments. I think it's coming. It's just not there.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, we're seeing new things coming out literally, as you know, almost daily. And again, that's going back to kind of where we started. It's one of the reasons I really focus on the main models from, ChatGPT from OpenAI. You've got Claude from Anthropic. You've got Gemini from Google. If you're watching those three models and what's happening, there's very little happening at least in the large language model world. There's very little happening outside of those three that's not unique to one of those, if that makes sense. In other words, they're generally leading that charge. Again, I think on the image and the video side, the music side, there's definitely some more changes happening there. But it's, I agree with you. Going back to your analytics example, AI in general is great at data analysis. One of my most interesting stories, and I need to get an update on it, but a few months back, I read an article that they've taken all of the diabetes research that we've done since the 1950s and put it all together and had AI analyze it. And they believe, they're testing right now, from what I understand, they believe they may have identified a cure because not that we didn't have the data, but we'd never connected the data necessarily because, of course, you've got thousands and thousands of different research papers and research that's been done from disparate people. And it's just beyond our human capacity as a general rule, unless you're going to pay somebody to figure it all out, and then they're going to fall asleep. So, AI doesn't do that. So data analysis, like you're talking about, I think will become one of the most common uses of AI over the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, and we talk. I mean, I use my show as an example, but every business has that. Every business has a set of data across multiple platforms that if they could just correlate better, or even, competitive information, right? To be able to have a tool or an employee out there that says your job is to track these 6 competitors. Tell me when they're up. If they update their website, or if they have a press release, or if any content comes out, what's going on, and summarize all that and give me the highlight reel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of us get so busy in our businesses we really don't look out for that, and we miss a lot of ideas, and people beat us in the market to certain things that you might think, well, I had that idea 4 years ago, I never acted upon it, or I never even thought that would work inside of my business, and here's this guy who's doing what I'm doing, but now he's making 4 times more because he added XYZ. To be an early indicator tool to what's happening inside of your own business and what's happening inside of your market and what your competitors are up to is a very time-consuming human task to do, but AI, I think, could just nail it. And just, you could have a bot that's its whole job is to generate a daily or a weekly market, summary.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and that's, I think, where, again, you combine that with the agents and giving them here's the type of stuff I want. Then you think of the ability for you and I to create essentially a custom dashboard on anything in our business or anything in the world that we want to know. And when we go back to kind of the whole purpose of business growth, I think that's where AI is really going to have some leverage, because it's the great minds in business that can think about, here are the things that I need in order to drive the growth of this business as the CEO or the COO or even the sales manager at that point, to be able to pull that data together and have that so readily available with actionable insights are going to allow the companies that do that, I think, to really leap ahead of the competition.
Yeah, I'll go back to that notebook.lm. I use it for that. So one of the things that notebook.lm is great at is I can take, I think, up to 300 sources, some huge number, and just load PDF after PDF after PDF. So here's a good case. I had somebody came to me and says, hey, I do some consulting for equity where I help companies grow through acquisition. And somebody came through and said, hey, I'm in the crypto space. We do X, Y, and Z on the blockchain. Not like coins and stuff, but they make blockchain software. Yep. We're wanting to buy companies and stuff, but we want a mergers and acquisitions guy who's really into and knowledgeable in the crypto and wants to be involved in everything blockchain. And I was like, well, first of all, I'm not that guy. He said, well, if you're interested, I'll give you some time to learn it. I said, well, I'm not even sure I'm interested in it yet. So what I did is he gave me some documents and some research papers and some other stuff that he used to learn it, about 10 PDFs, and said, here's some stuff to look at. I went and found another 10 or 15. I shoved it all into Notebook.lm. It created a 26-minute podcast-style interview where all I had to do is sit there and listen to those 2 computer voices, which is really good. They actually have, you can hear them breathe when they're thinking and everything. It's incredible
what Google's done there. It really is.
But it's just it's just sitting there like I'm driving down the road, going to one of my destinations. I had this file saved off, so I just hit play and I listened to 26 minutes intro to basically crypto tech, blockchain, and everything else. And I knew some of it. I'm a tech nerd, but it gave me enough insight where I just had to tell the guys, this isn't something I'm going to dive into. Right? There's, I did my research. I didn't read all your documents. I fed it to AI. I told him what I did, and I said, it's just not something, it's not a lifestyle I want to pick up at this point in my life, right? Because for what he wanted, you need somebody that's just passionate about this. That said, you can learn almost anything. If you wanted to learn, psychology, you could quite literally take 15 or 16 psychology, 30, 300 psychology papers and, research on your topic and shove them into this tool, and it will spit out a 20 to 25 minute podcast, deep dive in all those research papers, and it's in an interesting tone. So I use it as a speed learning thing to learn new areas and just to explore things and see if I'm interested.
I actually think that's an incredible hack with AI. I mean, it's what a great tip to do. If you're like me, I'm an auditory guy, so I love to listen to things like that. And the ability, again, to do that and create that so simply, combining that even with deep research now. Imagine going in and, using Google has a great deep research tool that's available through Gemini. Picking a topic, having AI give you 5 or 10 types of things, feeding that in the notebook, and then creating that 20 to 25 minute, again, essentially exploratory instructional podcast that you could listen to just determine, do I want to dive deeper into this? How many things have been presented to us over the years and we're like, yeah, maybe, maybe not. But the time it would take to find out if we're interested doesn't exist in our lives, and so we don't do it.
Yeah, like there's plenty of time. I live way out in the redwood forest. It's a 20-minute drive to go anywhere. So if I can prep a 20-minute lesson to put on my phone to listen to, and I wear hearing aids, so it's literally I just put them on the phone and turn it on, and they're in my ears. I don't have to put on a headset. I don't have to connect my phone to the car and make everybody listen to some scientific study or whatever. So it's very
Yes.
common for me to have some PDF in my on my phone. It's playing in my hearing aids. But that said, we are coming across about the 55-minute market. Tell people more, kind of what you do, what type of. You mentioned a couple times courses and groups. Let's talk about kind of what do you do to service the community of business owners who want to use AI to grow or to implement in their business.
So, as an individual and as a company, we really do two things. Three. We give away a ton of free information because we want and really believe that AI needs to be accessible. We've got a community of about 500,000 people that we talk to daily about AI and AI prompting. We then do a lot of what we call group coaching, where we pick a topic about AI, we put the course up for sale, and we do that. We do 2 unique ones of those every single month. And then for those people that go, wow, these are really cool, but I need more. I want to dig in. And we have an AI mastermind program that we bring business owners and leaders into to work with them directly in a group setting, but directly with me to figure out how do we implement this inside of our businesses? How do we leverage that? And I'm a huge believer that, it's one thing for the executive team to leverage it, and it's important, but more monumental sometimes to the bottom line is actually taking the 100 employees you have or the 50 employees and saving them each 30 minutes a day, and the amount of productivity that can be gained, and or at that matter, just literally given back to the employees as some breathing room in between all the tasks, because I have yet to meet anybody at the end of the day that has more time than they do tasks.
Yeah, it truly has helped me get a lot more done. So it's cool. So how do people find this stuff?
Really simple. Just remember my name. It's Jonathan Mast. They can go to jonathanmast.com/linktree, or if they forget the link tree, just jonathanmast.com. That's MAST if anybody's not hearing me clearly. Or if you're watching us, like you, we both have some beautiful white manes, and they can remember Whitebeard Strategies, and that'll bring them right to my website as well.
Awesome. I love the Whitebeard strategies. So, all right, cool. So if somebody could think of, or if somebody's listening to the podcast, they're interested in getting started, but they're just not sure, what would be the 3 biggest takeaways you'd want them to understand about AI and growth of businesses?
1, AI is not going anywhere. It's not a fad. It's here to stay. 2, AI does not have to be complicated. In other words, you could literally, from your computer or your phone, before you do anything else after listening to this podcast, you could use it to save you a few minutes or maybe a lot of minutes that easily. It is not complicated. And the third part is, you don't need to do it perfectly. In fact, you shouldn't try to do it perfectly because you will get burdened with overwhelm. Instead, use the tools that you have today in order to literally take some massive impact on your business, on your life, and just on enjoying things in general, and focus on that instead of searching for perfection.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you and your time today. I appreciate the time you spent learning this industry, even though it's fairly new. I get it. I get it, what it takes to take on something new, dive into it, become an expert in it, and be able to help others with it. There's some time commitment to that, and I want to acknowledge you for taking the time it took
Well, thank
to
you.
be resourceful to your community. I appreciate it. I know what's involved in that. That said, I think we'll wrap this up. We'll call it a show, hang out for a few minutes, and we'll call it a show.
Sounds great.
Sponsored by Dudelio. Buying or selling a small business? Assembling the right team is essential, and that's where Dudelio comes in. They work with individuals, independent sponsors, family offices, private equity firms, and small medium businesses, helping you build the perfect deal team for every stage of your acquisition or sale. And the best part, Dudelio's matching service is completely free. Visit Dudelio.com today and assemble your winning deal team.